Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James. And on my podcast, my guests and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. We believe that the relationship between a dad and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. Our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Let's get to it. Let's tune in. Hey, welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that the relationship between a dad and his daughter is one of the most important relationships in a young lady's life. Therefore, our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share on all of our social media pages about the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Also, make sure you guys check us out on our new network channel on YouTube. So it's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. We're definitely there because we're bringing you guys multiple podcasts at this point. So we put it together at one place so it's easy to find. Again, it's the Deal to Heal with Deal to Heal Podcasting Network is where you can find us. Not only can you find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast there, but you can also find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which is our partner podcast, right? So you guys can go there and follow us at our new website. I mean, not website, on our new, I always mess up with that, but on our new, I'm so just all over the place today.
YouTube channel.
Yeah. Let's just jump right in. Forget all the other stuff. We're going to jump right in because I don't know what's going on with me today. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Anneliese Vance. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I don't know why I'm kind of all over the
Take
place
a breath.
today. Right, woosah, right?
We're good.
So first of all, let me say thank you for being here because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, and especially being a busy mom. I definitely know you have other things to do, but thank you for taking your time.
Always.
Taking your time to be here with me and my listeners. So do me a favor. Introduce yourself to me. Well, I know you, but introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I'm Annelise Vance. I always say mommy CEO because mommy will always come before CEO. But I am fourth generation female owned entrepreneur. And we own Never Miss a Moment Consulting. Now, technically I own it, but I definitely co-own it with my husband, Dustin, and could not do it without him. We have 2 kids, going to be 3 in December, our chief cuteness officer, our son, and going to be 5, which is crazy. I will say she's going to be a whole hand old. In March, our brand manager, our daughter. So, and we do done for you Google ads for dad owned businesses. And we always say that we take marketing off your shoulders so that if your kids are small enough, they can be up there instead. And we also say we get you because we are you. We are a family owned business. I grew up in a family owned business, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. And we work with those other, dad owned, family owned businesses. And we understand, like, you were up with your daughter all night because she's going through a sleep regression, or you're up, doing a science project with your son, or having a fun conversation with your 16-year-old, whatever it may be. So we always say that as well. So that's us.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the viewpoint and everything that comes with it, even that business. So I'll just throw it out there. I would
Yeah.
definitely love to have you on our partner podcast, which is the
Yeah.
Dig Deal podcast, where we can really talk about that, of how you built this business that actually supports the family in that way. I love it.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely make that
Let's
happen.
do it.
So today we really want to again, so this is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and so I definitely love to have girl dads on, to talk about their relationship with their daughters. But on the flip side, I love having the daughters on too, because it brings a whole nother element to the conversation. And so on the flip side of what I usually ask the dad is, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad? But since you're not a dad, so I'm gonna flip
Not.
it over. What does it mean to you to be a daddy's girl, if I can say it that way?
So my dad was born to be a girl dad. He was born to be just a dad in general, but I always say, and this is nothing against boy dads, it's really not. But the special ones get the girls. We believe that it's the dad's role to raise the son on how to treat the daughter, and that's his relationship with his mom. But and that's good, and it's important. It is essential. It needs to be done in today's country, and I could talk about that for our whole time today. But the girls also need to see an example of how a dad treats their mom and what to look for. And I mean, my dad took me to daddy-daughter dances, and he took me to dinner, and he opened my door, and he stood up for me when I went to the bathroom. I mean, he got me roses after my first breakup and told me about his breakup. I mean, he's just the most empathetic guy you will meet, and he has just the most like healing energy when he hugs. I mean, he was just born to be a girl dad. He's Pop Chi now to my kids. And that came from my daughter because she couldn't pronounce his name. So he wanted to be Grandpa Joe like his dad, but he's Pop Chi. And he loves kids. I mean, I don't want to like take the discussion too much, but I told you my dad's dad joke for my name earlier. So when Dustin was asking my dad permission to marry me, my dad leans across the table, he holds his hand, and he said, "She's Annelise with option to buy. You can take her off the market." To which my husband, who does not get intellectual jokes a lot, he's come a long way in 18 years. I kicked him under the table to laugh. But the next thing out of his mouth, Ernest, was, "When are you guys having kids?" I said, "Dad, can I get married first?" And we didn't have kids for 13 years. So like he asked a lot.
Oh,
wow. And we had 2 kids 21 months apart. I mean, he was just ecstatic that there was another one coming and that it was a son. And his name's Quinn Michael Joseph. So it's like, he calls him Quinn Michael Joseph because that gets his name in there too, because my dad's name is Joe. So that sums up. He loves kids. He loves family. And he's just, I think if I didn't have him as a dad, I may not feel as positive about
Right.
having being a daddy's girl, but I definitely am a daddy's girl, and I still am. I'm going to turn 40 in March, and I'm still a daddy's girl. So,
Right. Amazing, amazing. So, are you the only daughter?
nope, I have a sister. I have a sister,
Okay.
which is an interesting relationship, but I do have a
It
sister.
always is. It
We're
always
very
is.
different. We're very different. When you get the same sex siblings, like generally you're opposites. I don't know if that's always true, but I love her with all my heart. We're just very different. So
Yeah.
we'll just
No
leave it at
problem.
that because that
No
is not the
problem.
topic of this
Right.
podcast.
So thinking back, what is probably one of your earliest memories of you and your dad? Um, yeah.
um, hmm. I'm thinking of two, and I'm going to go with the other one. So I remember just sitting on the couch with my dad watching Andy Griffith, or when it was Bobby Huggins and Kenyon Martin at the Bearcats. If you follow college basketball at all, I mean,
Okay.
we would get loud and rowdy and yell at the TV and like yell at the ref, or him playing with me under the lights. Playing basketball. I was a catcher, so he would toss with me. My dad is 6'3" and always over 200 pounds, and I was 5'11" at my. I'm still 5'11", but I was never over 200 pounds, thank God.
Mhm.
And so if I could get him in the post, I could get any chick except the one who was like 6'5", who I still remember played for in Dayton. She was solid. That was rough. But I could, if I could muscle him, and he taught me a hook shot. I mean, if I could do that, I could survive in high school basketball. And other memories. I mean, him yelling at the ref when I was playing basketball. Just like, Dad, like it's eighth grade basketball, like
Right.
relax. But it was fifth grade. I mean, he was serious about it. Like, he was about his girls, and ref, are you blind? I mean, and my dad is like Mr. Peace, Mr. Love. So like I was on the court watching this, like, who are you? But I loved it, I mean, it wasn't embarrassing. I was like, yeah, it's my dad. So
Yeah. So and let's talk about even as a teenager. So you
yeah.
mentioned about eighth grade basketball. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely in the teens then. But
Yeah.
even as a teen dad, when it came to you, because you even mentioned about your husband asking for your hand in marriage. So
Yeah.
how was the dating conversation, or was it even a conversation like when you got to that point?
So I mean, I had one serious boyfriend through high school, which was not my husband. I met him at church. I mean, my dad was supportive. He was protective. We definitely had conversations about, my body was a gift and to be saved for my
Mhm.
husband, and those kind of conversations.
Right.
And again, like, I mean, when I had my like first boyfriend, I mean, I was like 14, and it was like 2 months long, you know. But I mean, you've never gone through a breakup. Like, I mean, this is a new experience, right? I mean, I still have a picture of it that I saved. My dad got me a dozen red roses, and he told me his story about breaking up and what his dad passed on to him, my grandpa Joe, who I never got to meet. He died 2 years before I was born, but I've learned plenty about him through stories.
Mhm.
And it's cool. An aside, on LinkedIn every Monday we do Monday Moments, and my dad and I co-write a post. So we have all these stories of me growing up and my grandpa. We just did one about him being a World War II hero for Veterans Day. But my grandpa told him, it's her loss. She's missing out, and this should not affect your self-image. Like, she just doesn't realize what she had. And it flipped my dad's whole paradigm. And so he was able to pass that on to me. And, you know, every girl's still going to have some self-image issues, right? But
Mhm.
he had an empathetic conversation, but he didn't have a pity conversation of like, oh, poor you, like this just happened. He's like, let's focus on what matters. Like, you're awesome. He's the wrong guy, you know.
Yeah.
And he flipped it around. But I still, you ever have those times when you remember exactly where you were? Like, I remember where my bed was positioned in my bedroom. I remember the red roses. I remember sitting and talking to my dad. Like, it's a very vivid core memory. And my dad was really good at those conversations, like really, really good. So,
Good, good,
yeah.
good, good. So now this question. So I had a guest on this podcast, and she was actually on my other podcast, and we met on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's a part of a movement, and I hope she don't kill me because I can't remember the name of the movement. But what she does, she talks to dads about being available and also walking through their daughters when they get to the point where they're having their first cycles, right?
Mm.
And so she's teaching dads like, okay, this is what this is about, and even having a conversation of um, when this does, when your daughter does start having this, having her cycle, how do you show up?
Yeah.
Because a lot of dads just be like, oh, I'm out of here, I ain't got nothing to do with that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I loved having a conversation with her. I even was a part, uh, became a part of their event that they had, and was spoke at it. So was there a conversation or a story
Um,
that you can share, that your dad probably was like, yeah, I'm down for this conversation, or just like,
um,
yeah, I'm let mom handle that.
Mom handled the actual conversation, but I do remember something very key that my dad taught me, and it still sticks with me today. And I think I was probably around 10 or 11, which was actually around the time it showed up, which was awesome. I love that we're talking about this on a podcast. It's awesome. But he said, Annelise, at some point around, I don't know what age it's going to happen, but your brain is going to leave your head, and you're going to forget that you know what that you know that I know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go from being your hero to the guy who has no idea what he's talking about. And he said, somewhere around 19 to 21, your brain's going to go back in your head, and we're going to be best friends, and everything's going to be fine. And I'm prepared for that to happen. And I just want you to know that I know it's going to happen, and I'm ready for it to happen, and I'm okay that it's going to happen. But you're going to remember that I know what I'm talking about, and you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh, dad did know what he was talking about. And I think the second time that happens is when you have kids. And
Yeah.
this isn't about my mom, but I have called my mom so many times and asked her two questions. How did you do it? And how am I not dead? Because my daughter and I, we are cut from the same cloth. So
Right.
they always say you're going to get one just like you. And I did. But yeah, I remember that conversation. So it wasn't like exactly around that, but it was around like hormones and,
Mm,
how it's going to affect your brain chemistry. My dad's a chemist, so
mm,
it was very credible coming from him. And I remember when he was telling me about it, Ernest, I was like, what? And then and he's like, you remember that conversation we had? And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, it's okay. Like, we'll just wait for it to come back. Like, it's fine. Like, he's like, and he also let me know, I still know that I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't need
mm.
you to tell me that I know what I'm talking about. Like, all right, Dad. Like, so, yeah, he was good
Great,
for conversations.
great.
My dad is a man of few words, except when he has something to say. So
Mm.
he's
I like
very
that.
wise when he chooses his words, which I respect about him, because when he speaks up, like there's been a couple of times he's taken my husband out, Dustin, to coffee or dinner, and like we're gonna have a chat, and my husband's like, uh-oh. It's just like, Joe's gonna speak up, like what's he gonna say? So, but my husband can handle his own, Dustin can handle his own, so it's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Those we need to talk words. I don't care what uh what
Yeah,
environment it is. Just
whether
when
it's the
somebody says
wife
we
or
need to
when
talk,
someone
it's just
says
like,
that,
oh my God.
right? Right? Yep.
So
Yep.
one of the stories that I share, and you mentioned earlier about your dad taking you to daddy daughter dances and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
And one of my stories that I share is that when my daughter had her first daddy daughter dance, I had to work. And so I
Oh.
said, well, I made a decision like, okay, well, I'll miss this one and I'll catch the next one. Right. And so again, my daughter's 21. There never was a next one. You know what I mean? And so
Mm,
as a father, that's one of the things that I regret that I
mm,
didn't do. And so I know it's probably not, it'll be different coming from you, from your aspect. But when I even asked the daughters, I've asked the fathers, but I asked the daughters also, because I want this to be a learning platform also.
yeah.
Is there a time or something that uh, your dad did or didn't do that, now you look back like, man, I wish he had have done that, or I wish,
Mm.
that was maybe a little different.
Yep, I sure do.
She said right away.
Well, it's a big part of my story. You
Okay.
asked how my dad inspired the start of my company.
Yes.
So our company is called Never Miss a Moment Consulting, and it's all around, dads being present and families being present, not just dads, but dads have to be there for it to be the whole family unit, right?
Mhm.
And not missing those key moments. And when I say this, Ernest, I'm not throwing my dad under the bus. Like, I mean, if you
Mhm.
can't tell the affection that I have for my dad,
Right.
but my dad is a baby boomer. And he was raised with the generation of you do something you don't enjoy if it makes money for the family. And to him and his well, to my dad, I won't envelop the whole generation,
Right.
but a lot of people in that generation, I shall say, provision means financial. And one
Mhm.
thing that when you have Dustin on, he will talk about, I guarantee you, is how provision is not just financial. But that's how he was raised. He was raised by my grandpa, who, was born in Germany, was had to fight in World War I on the German side. Was in World War II, and he was a German translator on enemy lines. He helped free the Jews out of concentration camps. Like, I mean, he was a very integral part of the war. And so he was raised by a man who left to go make money for the family because he was in the military.
Mhm.
So my dad, for the first, let me think, 11 years of my life, he would travel. You could set his watch on when he left on Sunday and when he got home on Thursday night. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah. But when he was home, Thursday through that Sunday when he left, he was home. He was not at work. He was home. He was dad. He was husband. And the dichotomy of the two was kind of weird, right? Well, at 14, 3 years after running the company, and there's posts that talk about the history of this that people loved from the Monday Moment series, but he and my mom decided to close their company, and my dad went back to work. And I'll try not to get emotional in talking about this. Not one of the favorite decisions of my life. Now,
Mhm.
my dad made that decision to provide for the family. The heart, and if you talk to my dad, he would say he would make the decision again. And I don't know, I mean, I was 14. I don't know the inner
Right.
workings of my mom and dad running a company together. Like, there were probably so many, but I sit there and I'm like, if he had had a business coach, if he had had a marketing person like myself helping him get leads, would they still be in business? Because those next five to from about 14 to 20ish, when I met my husband, they were rough. I made some decisions that I really, all I wanted was my dad, that I wouldn't
Mhm.
have made.
Right.
And, it was hard. Now, what I will say is if he hadn't have done that and he hadn't have been working at a company in Boston, I wouldn't have gone to Boston College and I wouldn't have met Jesus. And so it was all part of God's plan. So as much as
Mhm.
I sit here and think, and then the next decision at 18, and I'm a gut feeling person. And if you're not a gut feeling person, sometimes people think I'm crazy. But when my parents sold their house and they went and took another job, because in that time frame, my dad got laid off 4 times in 6 years.
Mhm.
And because he was more expensive, he was older, he was always the easiest one to get rid of. And
Right.
so it was a huge time of instability in our family. And my dad actually ended up transitioning out of what he did, got his nursing degree at 60 years old, and has been a nurse for 14 years, and actually does something he enjoys that he would do for free. And I'm so proud of him, but he didn't do that growing up. He took the familiar route, right? Which, I'm not a baby boomer and we just don't think that way. But I understand the heart that he did with it, and I'm not mad at him. I mean, there's been a lot of forgiveness and conversations and empathy with me becoming a mom that I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
But they moved, so they sold my childhood home, the home I grew up in as a kid. A year later, my dad got laid off, and they had moved my family and my nana to Indianapolis. And so now my parents are in a different place than my kids, instead of still here in Ohio, where they're, not originally from. I'm actually first generation American too. My dad was born in Germany. My mom was born in Canada. They met in Minnesota. How they ended up in Cincinnati, I have no idea, except God. But all that to say, those decisions that he made in the name of provision and money, there was a lot more going on. And I, as the 18-year-old daughter who had this gut feeling, they were like, oh, you're just upset we're selling the house. I'm like, no. Like, I'm telling you. And a year later, my mom called me. She's like, how did you know? I said, I just know these things. It's not like I'm always right. I get these gut feelings, and they're there and they're happy now, and it's fine.
Right.
It's an hour and 45-minute drive, and sometimes the distance is not a bad thing.
Right.
But those are two things I wish that they would have tried, and maybe they did, right? Like, that's why I'm not throwing my dad under the bus, but I just know, like, I would have made very different decisions from 14 to when I met my husband. And those decisions have carried forward into our marriage with a lot of healing that I'm happy to talk about on the other podcast. If you want to talk about something other than marketing, that my husband has had to pick up the pieces of for the last 18 years. And that's a big reason. Everyone asks me always, why dads? That's probably the deep heart of it, is the decisions that I made because my dad wasn't there. And I want my husband home, so my daughter never has to make those decisions because daddy's always there.
I love that. I
So,
love that. That is amazing.
but that comes from a place of
Okay.
love for my father, not indictment, right? Like,
No,
I just
no.
wanted him back because I had him
Yes.
for like the first 11 years. I didn't know, right? I didn't know the difference, but we were a family from 11 to 14. He was home. And we didn't do okay, daddy's going to the airport, daddy's home, daddy's going to the airport, daddy's home. And we didn't do the 7:00 calls at night, which I'm grateful for, right? Or I didn't have to listen to my dad on recording reading me a book, because he would read to us every night. We read to our kids every night. He reads, like, when he's here, Popchi is the book reader at bedtime and nap time. He is the requested book reader because my Nana was an actress, so he has this like very animated voice. But I lost it, right? I knew what I was losing at that point, and I wanted it back. So that's where that comes from. Not that my dad is
Right.
a
No,
horrible
no.
person.
And again, the reason why I asked those questions. So my very first guest is a friend of mine, and I chose him to be my very first guest for a reason. So at the time of us recording his episode, he had just had his very first child, and it was a girl. It was a girl, and so I think she was only like 3 months, 3 months old. If she was 3 months at that point, but I want
Yeah.
to say she was 3 months old. And so
Yeah.
I always say, every conversation that I have on here, I want it to be informative, but also a learning curve for him, because he's a
Yeah.
brand new father and a brand new girl dad. So I'm
I get
always
it.
like, I want to leave something for him that we can do
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
or if it's on the other side, that we can do right, the things that we
Yeah.
did right. And so that's why I shared that story of me missing my daughter's daddy daughter dance, because
I
that's
only had
something
one,
that
too.
I
I
care
was 14. I only had one, too. So,
for. Right? So
yeah.
on the flip side of that, right? So I always ask that one, and then on the flip side, when they talk about the accomplishments of a father in your eyes. So with you guys' relationship, and just in your eyes, what do you feel is one of your dad's greatest accomplishments when it comes to your relationship and with your father?
Always being a safe place. And I attribute, so Dustin, my husband, and I will celebrate 18 years of marriage, February 24th of next year, 2025. And there's a conversation that and again, one of those like critical, like core memory conversations. Most of mine are with my dad, which there's a lesson there. And again, this is Mom, Dad, if you're listening to this is not to throw anyone under the bus. But there are some autoimmune challenges that have genetically passed down on the female side of my family. And back then I was 11, I think. So it was like 28 years ago. So if you think of like all the advancements we've had in understanding how food affects us and mental health and all of that. Right. So back up 28 years, right? It showed up as bipolar symptoms, and doctors didn't know it was food related. And so they put her on medication. And that was the logical thing to do back then. Well, it created a really interesting cocktail in her brain chemistry. I will just say that. And I have a wonderful relationship with my mother. This is all healed. She met Jesus right before my son was born. Like, we are good. So again, I don't know if she'll hear this, but I'm not throwing her under the bus. But I remember my dad sitting me down on the porch. We had couches and stuff. It was a screened in porch. And he said, I'm going to stand by your mom. It's really hard, but I'm going to stand by it for her. And I'm going to stand by it for the girls, for you and your sister. And I will forever remember that conversation. And when times have gotten tough, which, right, for a lot of people, I mean, dude, marriage is like, it's not a cakewalk, right? It is a daily decision. Right. I mean, we just had like our kids and okay, mommy and daddy are having a conversation, go play. And we try really hard not to have heated conversations in front of our kids, but we also let them know mommy and daddy do have to work things out, and we do have conversations. And it always goes through my head because I have the same autoimmune challenges that my mom does. And my daughter is corn free. Like, we figured that out right before she turned 4. And so she knows like anything with corn she doesn't have. We're trying to keep it out of her system so she doesn't have some of that stuff show up. But I am grain free. So I don't do corn, rice, anything with bread, pasta, wheat, any of that, because I know how it affects me. And it does show up as bipolar. And what it does is you end up in the driveway feeling like you want to leave, having no reason why you feel you want to leave. It is the weirdest, like, it's like, I love my husband. I love my kids. Why do I want to leave? And I'll call my husband from the driveway. I think I had something in my system. Tell me to come back inside the house. But my mom would have these where she just had these like nonsensical urges. And my dad was like, if that's what you want, like whatever it is, I'm going to stand by you. But I remember that. And I remember that in my marriage when it gets hard, and how my dad did that for us. And it was just this core memory. And I hope that we have it for my kids, that, hey, mommy and daddy are going to stick by each other. And, divorce is the D word in our house. It's not an option. And I know I'm not putting anyone down when I say that. It's just our story. There's, reasons that it can and should happen for some people, but that's just a decision that we made. And we want our kids to see like mommy and daddy are working things out, and that's what mommy and daddies do.
Right. So. I love it. I love it. So we're gonna get ready to transition.
Okay.
So forgive me, right? And I'll send it to you. So okay. I wrote an ebook called The 4 Core, right? Oh, yeah. And it's the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. Right? Yeah. And usually I send it to my guests so you guys have it so we can talk about it. And I forgot to send it to you. So that's my fault.
All right. I can fly on. I can go on the fly. Yeah. I probably agree with all 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna send them to you afterwards. Right.
Okay.
But so the core 4 is the core 4 values that I believe that every daughter should get from her father. And those values are guidance, affirmation, love and affection, and protection.
Yeah.
And so of those 4, when you think about your relationship with your dad, and even just in your own voice, I say, which one, and I believe they're all important, but which one probably would be the most important to you, and probably was the most important to your dad, that he
Oh,
instilled in
oh,
you.
so my dad and I are gonna have different answers on this. And if there's
Mhm.
one, we don't let it become an issue. But my dad is amazing at love and affection. There will always be a hug coming in the door. You'll see us dancing in the living room. And my husband's like, really? You know, like there's always hugs and kisses, and there's love. And I think that that's wonderful, and I'm appreciative of it. I don't know if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, but one of mine
Mhm.
is
Yes,
physical
ma'am.
touch.
Yes.
Um, and that's really important. Like, you were in trouble, borderline grounded, if you did not give my mom a hug and a kiss on both sides of the cheek, because apparently we were French, even though that's like nowhere in our genealogy. When you left, like, you were in trouble. And same, like with my kids, they know, I don't know if I inherited it from my mom, but like, you hug and kiss me before you leave, because nothing's going to happen. But if it does, I want to know that we hugged and kissed.
Right.
But I think, and we might talk about this on another podcast, it's protection, I think, is the most important. I think that that's something that a man is uniquely created to provide. Your anyone who's listening to this who's a girl, like, I'm not putting down, but like, God wired men to be stronger,
Mhm.
faster. Um, my husband will sit and look at, he'll be facing the door, right? And now I do that. Like, I always like have my head on a swivel. Um, and women are nurturers. My kids come to me when they've already been hurt, when they bang their knee, or mommy, I have a boo boo. Like, my son will like break into fake tears, we call them, in hysterics, until he gets his kiss, and then he runs off crying or laughing. And I'm like, can we just skip the theatrics?
Right.
But to protect, they go to my husband. And I think they innately know that.
Mhm.
And I love my dad. But because he was gone for all but 3 years of my life, that fell on my mom's shoulders. And I think that's a really heavy thing to put on a woman's shoulders, to be a nurturer and a protector.
Mhm.
I think a woman is, and remind me of the four again: love and affection, protection,
Love and affection, protection, guidance, and
guidance,
affirmation.
affirmation. So affirmation, is good too. Um, but I think guide, guidance, affirmation, and love and affection, I think a female can do um, just as well, if not better, than a man. Protection, a man is uniquely, in my mind, God
Mhm.
designed for that to happen. That's my
Yeah.
belief. If you don't like that, you're not going to like anything I write about on LinkedIn. You're not going to like me. So we'll just throw that out there. And I am not confused. I don't need to put she and her on my, like, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
My
Yep.
husband's a boy. He's a man. Like, I not confused there. Just throwing that out there. But and it's not that I won't try to protect my kids, but
Mhm.
um, I look to my husband for protection, right? I look to Dustin for protection.
Yeah.
Um, and because innately I know, like, right? Like, it's not that I'm not going to like be mama bear and I will beat the
Right.
crap out of you if you try and do something with my kids. And my husband just taught my 4-year-old daughter how to make a fist. And I'm like, oh, great. But I'm like, that's probably good. Right. And I
Right.
had to run in and get some water. My kids, we were at a play place. Right. And I'm like, Lily, how do you make a fist? And she's like, and I was like, all right, if you need to, stay in your seat. But if you need to, like, deck them. So she's who I call my warrior princess. She will beat the crap out of you wearing a princess dress and ballet shoes. Like, that's my daughter summed up in a sentence. But no, I think protection's the most important. And it's not that my dad didn't. Um,
Mhm.
he was gone
Right.
for 4 to 5 days out of the week. And so,
Right.
you know, um, that was something, when I met Dustin, that is something that drew me to him, was his core value of protection. And I would be shocked if he gave a different answer when you have him on. Um, he is just wired to be a protector. And when he doesn't protect his kids, he's just crestfallen. I mean, he will just beat himself up more than anyone could. Um, so maybe a long answer to your question,
No,
but
no, it's great, great
I
answer
was
though. Great
excited to
answer.
talk about this part. I was like, where's the book? Like, this is great.
So is the book is called The Core Four, right? Which is the four core values which I shared with you. And so my next question is, if there could be a fifth value that you could add, what would that fifth value be?
Presence. Um, and I think provision is always talked about with men. Anyone can go make more money. Like you talked about with the daddy daughter dance, you can't get those moments back. There's a moment I'm happy to share, not on this podcast. I don't want to go there today because it's like a whole topic, and I'll maybe talk to you offline before we talk. But presence is super important. My kids, I mean, when we started Never Miss a Moment, my daughter was 8 months. We had a new mortgage, like a year-ish. 6-figure incomes got ripped out from under me because I was wrongfully terminated. Now, I proved wrongful termination, so they paid us back. But my daughter didn't care about that money had just left because mommy and daddy were still there. And God provided for everything. I mean, we had gift cards show up. We had diapers show up, drop shipped to our house. My mother-in-law, I call it the Ruby collection. I mean, my kids are the best dressed kids anywhere. I promise you. And we didn't miss a beat, but you know what broke my daughter's heart was when daddy had to go to an off-site client because, and this is where I started relating to my dad, and I had a lot of forgiveness, is those decisions you will make to provide for your kids. And, you know, we do need presents, but, you know, money does buy groceries and diapers and keep a roof over your head. So my dad wasn't entirely wrong, but he had to go to an off-site client for 18 months. And when daddy had to walk out the door every morning, Monday through Friday, that's when she got pissed. Like, visibly pissed. Like, she would not hug him because it, in her mind, and she was 2.5, mind you. So this is how like deep this goes with girls. It condoned the message that he had to walk out the door. Now, it was still for our business, but daddy, in her mind, it didn't matter. Like, daddy was leaving. Daddy was gone. Her best buddy, who'd been with her every day of her life for 2.5 years because of COVID, and that we owned a business, was gone. And so that presence is the most important. And I think it's the most important thing that a dad can provide. And I don't think that women would make some of the decisions that they made if their dad was present. And that is something you're not ever going to convince me is not true, because I know my story. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Man, we could go on and on forever.
I know.
So
We could talk for forever. Like I said, when I saw your podcast, I was like, this is like my soulmate podcast to my, like, what I'm doing. So this is great.
No problem. No problem. So I want you to have the last word, right?
Yeah.
And I want you to leave us with a word of advice or inspiration, however you feel. You know, some for the fathers or just families in general. And definitely want you to leave your information for everything that you have going on and where people can find you in order to follow you. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that, right? So to my listeners, to you guys, first of all, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad. I almost said the deal to here to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Make sure you guys go and check me out, should I say, on my main website, which is the dealhealfulfill.org website, where my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. And so you guys go to the dealhealfulfill.org website in order to find more about me, even having me come in to be a speaker or to host an event or a workshop or anything of that nature, you can find it there at that website, how to go about doing that. Also, you can go to ebooksbyejames.com. We talked about the four core, which is the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. But there are also other ebooks that I've written that are available at ebooksbyejames.com, including From Males to Men, which is a male mentoring book for young men that's making the transition from teenagers to adulthood. And also there is a ebook called Forgiving Me, the Four Steps to Self-Forgiveness, which I really love. But you can find all of them at ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys go and check that out. And also make sure you go to the Deal to Heal tees. We played the commercial at the very beginning. Deal, the number 2, healtees.com, which is our inspirational t-shirt line, and put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Again, go to deal, the number 2, healtees.com in order to check out our inspirational t-shirt line, which includes our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. So there's one with the logo, podcast logo for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast is there also. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month, talking about everything regarding forgiveness, what it is, what it means to forgive, who forgiveness is for, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, just everything regarding forgiveness. It is absolutely free, but I believe that the information is priceless. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just ended or there's one coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for the next forgiveness workshop. Or you can go to Eventbrite and type in forgiveness workshop hosted by the Forgiveness Mission in order to sign up for that. Again, it is absolutely free, but I believe that the information is priceless. So make sure you guys go there to check us out. All right. So again, let me say, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for for sharing your story. And I definitely look forward to have you on the other podcast to talk about your business and even more, dive even a little bit more into everything that we couldn't get into on this podcast. Or maybe we could even have a part 2. So
I'm down. I've done it. I've done it.
But I thank you so much for coming on. I want you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, what I want to say to, I'm guessing mostly dads are listening to this, or daddy's girls, is that dads matter. And I don't think that message is portrayed enough out there in marketing, in the media. It's always stories of the dads that, are absent or left, or, just think of the variation. And I am surrounded by a community on LinkedIn that I've had the blessing to create starting in, I think we started really talking about this topic October of 2022. So coming up on 2 years. And just that dads matter, and that there's dads out there like Ernest that want to be present. They want to be home. They want to be involved, and telling their story and letting people know, like, this whole group of people that you don't hear about are out there. So that's my hashtag, actually, is hashtag Dads Matter, where the D and the M are capitalized on LinkedIn. I put it on every single one of my posts, and I don't know if someone else has it, but in my mind, it's mine. And that's where you can find me the most, is on LinkedIn. So you see my name here at the bottom. That is what you can search for on LinkedIn. I'm on there mostly 5 days a week, sometimes on the weekends. I have been titled, as you can see on here, the mom who advocates for dads, the most family-oriented person on LinkedIn. I wear those peer badges very proudly, because they're not like I filled out a bunch of contributions and got a badge. Like, it's my peers saying it. And I we're doing a post with my dad on Monday. We do a post with my husband, Dustin, on Friday. We talk about another dad we've done over 50 in 2 years on Wednesday. So I talk a lot about this on different podcasts. We do have a monthly show. It's a LinkedIn audio room. It's the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know Ernest is Central Standard Time, and I always get those confused. So thanks for working with me on scheduling. I was like, okay, carry the two. And we have a newsletter that comes out at the last Thursday of every month. Both of them are called Dad Talk. So we're featuring topics that are important to dads. You wanted to give, specific information to girl dads, like you talked about. We've talked about everything from single dads to blended family dads to girl dads to communication to, we've had a blended family coach on. We've had, all kinds of awesome things. That's been going for about a year. And then currently our website is Nmamconsulting.com. I say currently because we're getting ready to do a name change and a rebrand, and I'm kind of teasing that a little bit, just kind of owning what we're doing. Never miss a moment, fit at the beginning, still our why, still very much what we're about, but want to just narrow into who we've become. And did I answer everything? I think I did.
I believe so.
Okay. So yeah, just that dads matter. You matter. I was talking to my friend this morning, and he's filling out, he's going to be my featured dad either this week or next week. And he was like, it's ironic I'm doing this. I'm separating a sibling rivalry. And I said, no. That's exactly why you're filling it out, because you chose to not go corporate route. You chose to own a business, to be home with your 3 daughters. I'm pushing him to get on this podcast. He is very much a girl dad. And I said, that's exactly why you matter, is because you're doing that. And it's those little moments that if you're not doing, either mom is trying to do but can't do them as well as dad, because we are wired with different giftings, or a babysitter or a daycare or a teacher is doing them. And we wanted to be the ones doing those in our kids' lives. And, there's a bunch of dads out there who are doing it the right way. And I just like to get their message out. So that's what I would end with.
I love it.
Dads matter.
I love it. To my audience, definitely all of the information will be down in the descriptions. I'll make sure I'll get as much information as I can so that you guys will have the information there, so you guys can go there and follow. So definitely check out the descriptions of the podcast. And I want to say thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where our mission is to elevate the voices of girl dads in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. And so until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast on all your podcast listening platforms. Also, don't keep it to yourself, but share it with someone else, that the Girl Dad Discussions podcast is on the air. Until next time, be blessed.